Well, I didn't think I was going to be filming this video, but I'm really wanting to rewatch some MCU movies. But I haven't really genuinely rewatched most of these movies in a long time. Some of them I haven't ever rewatched. And since there's still a lot of projects coming out next year, there's not a time in the near future that it feels appropriate for me to be making this video. So I figured now, while we're kind of between shows, between movies, I would film a cold tier ranking of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I think I can save this list on this tier ranking website and we can kind of update things as we go, which I think would be kind of fun rather than just doing a really, really long grandiose video after every single new release. I think just kind of slotting it in where it fits would be fun. So without further ado, I present to you the Marvel Cinematic Universe tier list. In our top tier, we have I Am Iron Man. Obviously, classic, something that is just top tier MCU, absolute best, a personal favorite of mine, whatever it might be. Next, we have America's Ass, which I think I have lovely represented in these two beautiful emojis. These are ones that are maybe not top tier MCU, but don't make them any less great, and honestly, this is probably where a lot of my personal favorites will end up. Then we have A Glorious Purpose. Not bad, pretty good still, but you know, for some reason or another, not as good as the rest. Then we have Cut the Check, the category that I will kind of see as splitting the entirety of the MCU, because these will be things that I still maybe enjoyed, but upon rewatch, I may not like as much, or ones that are kind of just not great. Then we have Language, of course, which is, you know, second from the bottom. So basically anything that's not Thor the Dark World, but that I don't like, will end up here. And then Nobody Would Know. We'll see what ends up in that category, but it's like, if it was forgotten, would I care? I don't know. So these obviously are all different quotes from MCU. If you can name each one of the movies that these are from, you're a real one. I am just gonna kind of go about this, and depending on how I incorporate the screen recording, you may see the movies and TV shows down below before I pull them up. This one also includes a lot of the Marvel TV shows that are on other platforms, including the Hulu shows and the ABC shows like Agent Carter and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Those I'm not going to be including, not because they're not canon or not because they're not technically something, but I really want this to be the really kind of detailed MCU, the way we consider the MCU of being the 23 or 24 movies and then the 3 TV shows that have come out this year. That's kind of how I'm doing this. If you got gripes with it, you can go somewhere else. Jeez. I literally ran through this the other day to see how fast I could do it, and now I forget where I put everything. We'll do something easy. Well, okay. Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm putting that in America's Ass. The reason being, it's an Avengers team-up movie, so it's decently better than all the rest. And some may be thinking this is way too high for this one, but I personally really like this movie. It's the introduction of Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver, Pietro. You will never be forgotten. I loved him. Aaron Taylor Johnson. I really want them to figure out a way with this whole multiverse. I can't speak. With this whole multiverse thing that Marvel is doing now, I really want my Pietro back. I want Aaron Taylor Johnson back in the MCU. Kevin, make it happen. Okay, then we have Ant-Man and the Wasp, which is... we'll put in Language for now, okay? Didn't really like this movie, not super memorable, other than the end credit scene and the fact that we get exploration of the quantum realm, which is obviously super important in Endgame, and kind of maybe the future of the MCU and the multiverse as we know it. I do like getting to see more of Evangeline Lilly because I think she's fantastic in the role, and obviously Michael Douglas and Michelle Pfeiffer are great, and, you know, Paul Rudd and getting to see Luis and the boys, you know, start their business, you know, go on, do bigger, better things in the world. But it's just, you know, it's just like, it's not my favorite, okay? Another one that's gonna go in that category for me, at least for now, Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Not a fan, okay? I didn't like the stuff with Ego. I feel like this movie had some really cool elements, like the 70s stuff with Ego and Star-Lord's mother in the very beginning. Obviously, the soundtrack is great, and there's elements of this movie I'm sure I would enjoy more on rewatch, especially the Yandu stuff, but again, not my favorite. Okay, one I think is great, Ant-Man. Now, this one I'm going in the Cut the Check, because like I said, Cut the Check is kind of like where I'm seeing these categories split. Even though I know it's the 4th category down, and technically, mathematically, that's not the case. I just think that this movie is one I've really only watched, I think, twice, And there's so much to this movie. It has a special place in my heart because it was the first Marvel movie that was completely filmed, for the most part, in Georgia. And that's when they kind of started working at the studios here. And so that's really cool for me as a Georgia resident. I just really love this movie. I love Luis so much. The amount of times I try to go, oh, yeah, so here's what happened. This crazy, stupid, fine, da-da-da-da-da. Like, I love that. And this is a movie I need to do a rewatch of because it's really funny. And I don't have a problem with Yellow Jacket the way I feel like a lot of people do with him as a villain in the MCU. Hot take, I don't really get the whole villain thing that people argue in Marvel. Oh, our first I Am Iron Man S tier. The Avengers. Listen, you can call me crazy. This is the first MCU movie I saw in theaters. I don't really remember what I watched before this, but I know I didn't watch everything leading up to this. But this was the movie that made me into the nerd that I am today, okay? I remember walking into that theater, seeing all the huge posters they had, because this was such a big event. This was one of the very first, like, Marvel team-up movies. Not just Marvel, but superheroes, period, because X-Men had kind of always been together, whereas this was bringing characters together. And it was awesome. It was the introduction of Hawkeye, my favorite character. I think Mark Ruffalo's Bruce Banner is the only Bruce Banner that I will recognize ever, and also makes perfect sense because he's Bruce Banner and the Hulk, and he does it so well. This film also has so many iconic quotes. If you don't know, and this is the first time you're seeing me, I rewatch this movie every single year, the first night of summer. It's what I do. And then I usually watch it at least one more time during the year. So I just really personally love this movie. And I think there's elements in this movie from a directorial standpoint, even though I don't want to get into that don't work in other superhero team up movies, specifically the 2017 Justice League. They work here, they don't work there. And I can't, just because the director's not a great guy, doesn't mean that the movie's not great, okay? Moving on. Black Panther. Glorious Purpose. This is the perfect example of why I want to cut the check to be, a step down from Glorious Purpose, because Black Panther to me is one of the most solid, like, solo films in the entirety of the MCU. The world building that it establishes, the soundtrack is phenomenal, and the villain is one of the best villains in the MCU. And this movie, I remember seeing it. I got to go see it with my entire, senior class the year it came out. This movie was just absolutely incredible, and I really just have a lot of good feelings attached to this. Each time I rewatch it, I like it more. Captain America: The First Avenger. Glorious Purpose. I really like it. I love a good period piece. This is the introduction to Bucky, to Cap, to Peggy Carter. To Peggy freaking Carter. It's better than Ant-Man as it stands right now. Haven't rewatched it in a while, but not as good to me as Age of Ultron, So yeah, Captain Marvel, a contentious movie. Listen, I love this movie. Another cut to me 2 seconds ago being I love this movie and now not knowing where to put it. Cut the check. Okay, listen. Captain Marvel, and I'm going to say this once, I'm going to say it loudly, and if another Captain Marvel movie comes out and it needs to be addressed, I'll say it. The only thing I ever have had a problem with Captain Marvel is the fact that, she's got help when, she literally smashed through, an alien ship, moments before that. She doesn't really need y'all's help. I get it. We're in this together. We're fighting. We're a team. Look at all of us. Was that an amazing shot of all of them together? Yes. I think her solo movie is fantastic. Again, one of the better ones. I love her entire Air Force backstory. I like the fact that there's still parts of her origin story that aren't known to her, and so they're left out from the audience perspective with her whole Kree training program. I really love this movie. I love all the characters it introduces. Of course, Monica Rambeau. Again, I like all of these movies pretty much, with the exception of one of them. They're all going to be pretty high. Captain Marvel is one I've only seen twice, so I can't put it higher, especially when I don't have the emotional attachment to that I know I have with some of the others. Captain America: Civil War. Oh boy, this is getting increasingly harder. Okay, we're going to put it in the America's Ass category, and the reason we're putting it there and not in the I Am Iron Man category is because this was a very hard film to watch as an Avengers fan, because you're seeing your on-screen family break apart and get into this really messy fight. Now, the implication that this movie leaves, fantastic. The villain, Zemo, I think is a great villain in this. I think the personal attachment for each of the characters, great. I fall on Cap's side of the argument, and especially because all my favorite people's over there. We got Cap, we got Sam, we've got Bucky, we've got Hawkeye, we got Wanda. That's a superior team. I'm sorry about it, but that's a superior team. I don't know. Maybe I'm just, it's escaping my memory how good it is. I remember that airport scene, and I remember wanting to watch it like 500 times after I saw that movie. Like, if I could have paid like $5 to just go watch that 15 minutes again, would have done it hands down. But alas, it's not like my favorite. And as much as I like reviewing movies from a critical end or being academic about it, like the MCU hands down is about enjoyment for me. So that's where it falls. Okay, Doctor Strange, another one that I'm going to put in cut the check. Again, this is where a lot of the later phase 3, or early phase 3, but later solo films, the solo films that like had to be integrated later, are going to fall. Just because I've only seen them like once. Like, I've never seen Doctor Strange a second time. Never. And that's not because I don't want to. I love Wong. I love Benedict Cumberbatch's story. I love that shot where his hands are shaking and he can't control them. And I like kind of the, you know, the Batman Begins, Ra's al Ghul kind of elements that it has. I kind of reference those a lot in the MCU, even though I don't really like Batman Begins that much. But I do like Doctor Strange. I think it's a really cool, trippy movie. But again, like, it's not something to me, it's a means to an end in the franchise, getting the Time Stone involved, getting Doctor Strange introduced. But, you know, I feel for Stephen Strange and what he's going to have to deal with in phase 4. So, you know, I can't put the man any lower than that just because I haven't chosen to rewatch this movie. Okay, next one. I mean, do we even really need to talk about this? It's literally in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. Avengers Endgame. It goes in Iron Man. That's where the quote's from. I mean, I know it's a callback. That's where it goes. That's where it's going. No, we don't need to talk about that one anymore. Okay, Spider-Man Far From Home, and I might get heated for this. It's going in the America's Ass category. I loved this movie when it came out in theaters. I mean, I did like end up getting like one of my first internships like the same day, so I know that like plays into the theater experience. But it was, I don't know, I just had a really great theater experience when I went to go see this movie dressed up, got popcorn, I was looking cute, got an internship that day. You know, life was good in the summer of 2019, okay? I love that this movie deals with the implications of Avengers Endgame, and a lot of people get really critical, like, why would Tony handle this stuff to Peter? Why would Peter be the event? Like, you guys, listen. I like the Mysterio stuff. I don't really care about he's another person that's mad that Tony Stark didn't like him. This is where my entertainment stuff wins out over the critical stuff. Like, again, haven't rewatched this movie, but all of the classmate stuff and that opening montage when they're talking about the announcements of how people got blipped is the funniest thing to me. To go from Avengers Endgame, where the ending of that movie is a funeral, okay, of a character that has carried the MCU all this time, and then you're like, welcome back to blah 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 high school, and we're talking about the blip and like so and so, and that character, can't remember his name, but he's the guy who's kind of like puny, but he is one of the only ones that didn't get blipped, so he's like super buff now and like older and taller than everyone else. Now here's where it gets tricky. I prefer Spider-Man. Do I prefer Spider-Man Far From Home or Spider-Man Homecoming? I don't know. Also, I will have to update my letterbox according to what this is. So don't like be in the comments like, this doesn't match up. Da-da-da-da. Like, I'm not looking at anything. I'm going off my gut right now, okay? I really like Spider-Man Homecoming. I think it's one of the best intros to a character solo projects. I like the fact, okay, as a lover of the Amazing Spider-Man 1 and 2 when they came out in theaters, I love the fact that this movie doesn't waste any time like being like how he makes his web stuff, or if he got bit by a spider, the Uncle Ben thing is just totally ignored. I like that because I think that's a waste of time. Like, everyone knows that those things are true about Spider-Man. It's not really important that much. It's more important of like how he chooses to act, and I think that is one of the best choices the MCU could have made, was introducing a character like Spider-Man in Civil War and then having a Homecoming type movie where it's more of a coming of age teen film and about responsibility than it is about like him becoming Spider-Man. Like, in a way, he's obviously Spider-Man when he gets bit by the spider or genetically modified or whatever the heck you want to call it. But in this movie, Peter Parker and Spider-Man become one. Instead of having to figure out these abilities, it's more like he already has them to work with. What do you do when they're like slightly hindered and taken away from you and you're forced to be that teenager? Okay, one that just took me wildly by surprise is Guardians of the Galaxy. I really got into the MCU in like 2012 with the Avengers, but at the time, like nowadays when you enter the MCU, people understand that the next one's going to be really big or really important, or they're going to know stuff about the characters even if they've never been introduced in the MCU before. When I saw Guardians of the Galaxy, which I believe came out in 2014 or 2015, I just remember being like, whoa, that movie was so good. The soundtrack was so good. I love the introduction of all the new characters, and I just think it has this like spunk to it that the MCU desperately needed. It was the perfect pivot point for them to be like, we're going into space now, we're focusing on the Infinity Stones, we're going to give you new characters. Part of the reason was like they needed cheaper people and they needed longevity for the MCU, and they were already they were already like 7 years in at that point. So like, let's introduce new people, and I think all of them are such great additions to the world. And I really loved it, and I just have to put it a little bit higher than everything else, just because I know I love it. Like, I know if someone's got Guardians of the Galaxy on, I'm gonna have a good time. Okay, easy, bottom tier. Like, do we need to talk about this? No. Okay, and I understand with Shang-Chi reintroducing the Abomination, this might have some important relevance. I like the fact that Ross goes from being a general in this movie to then becoming like Secretary of State and going on to do all those kind of things in Civil War. I do really enjoy that. However, it does not change the fact that this movie's not good. It doesn't change the movie that Edward Norton is neither Bruce Banner nor the Hulk. It doesn't change that for me. So that's bottom tier. For a while, I didn't even count it as MCU, and now I feel like I have to, but that's going down there. Okay, Avengers Infinity War. This one, I'm gonna get hate for this. I don't get the whole Infinity War is better than Endgame. I get people saying from a writing standpoint, from a 3-act structure standpoint, from the idea of having the antagonist win sort of thing. I get that, but you don't understand how I sat in a car for an hour and a half after this movie, just in the Wendy's parking lot outside of my movie theater, just like frustrated because I didn't know what was gonna happen, and I was really sad. And at the time, I thought it was a dumb choice, not knowing the gloriousness that Avengers Endgame would be and what the Russo brothers had planned for me. I didn't understand why they killed off all the new characters, because to me, contractually, I knew all of them would be back. I knew all of them had future projects, whereas the OG 6 Avengers were all gonna be out the door. And like, this was before Disney Plus was like announced to be a thing. So, I was like, that doesn't make sense to me. There's no stakes for the next movie. But boy, was I wrong. So, I don't know. For me, I feel like I just can't end Infinity War and then not watch Endgame now that I have both of them at my disposal. So it just has to go below. It's just not the same for me. Okay, Iron Man 2. I don't think it's that bad, but like, it's not very memorable to me. It's the introduction of Natasha Romanoff, and I do like that. I don't think it's we'll bump it up. We'll bump it up to cut the check. Because, it is an Iron Man movie. I do really like all the like memes that have come out of this movie, and to me, you might say like, that doesn't make the movie better, but for me it does though. So that's gonna go there. I can't even really remember. It's the introduction of Don Cheadle as Rhodey, so I think that was a really nice handoff, a better adjustment, and I think they make a joke about it in the movie as well. So yeah, I don't think Iron Man 2 is as bad as you guys remember it being. But I'll give you guys the next one, Thor: The Dark World. It's not going in the bottom category for me, and I'm sorry for that. Not really though, because I like this. I like the fact that the OG first and second Thor movies are kind of like really dark Shakespearean things. I like Malekith as a villain, and I really like Loki and the emotional turmoil of him being in prison and stuff. People called him like Dark Tarzan Loki on Tumblr back in the day. Anyways, I like this. I have nostalgic memories about this movie that I want to like go with the crowd and be like, yeah, Thor Dark World sucks. But like, I can't. So sorry. Okay, next, Iron Man 3. Again, this is going to be a controversial thing. Lest I remind you that this is for me. This is a ranking for me. I'm sharing it with you. I'm being benevolent, but it's not for you. Iron Man 3 is one of my favorite movies, hands down. This movie is the reason I'm making this, because I want to watch this movie again. And I can't say this is a cold thing if I've rewatched Iron Man 3 recently. It's going up there. I think it's the perfect arc for Tony's character for his 3 solo films. I think it is perfect. I don't have any problems with it. I like the twist of the Mandarin. I like it especially even more now knowing that Shang-Chi is actually going to address the Mandarin. I love Trevor, the Ben Kingsley's character, and all his jokes, and the "you'll never see me coming." I also love this movie because there's an Imagine Dragons song on it called Ready, Aim, Fire. I literally bought the soundtrack of the entire movie for that song because prior to the streaming music days, again, am I dating myself and how old I am? iTunes had this thing where you couldn't listen to an album unless you bought the whole thing. Or there's certain songs on an album that you had to buy the whole thing. So I own the entire Iron Man 3 soundtrack for that song. Is it worth it? Yes. And I'm really sad. I used to have this really awesome shirt that I went to go see Iron Man 3 in. If I can find a photo, I'll put it on the screen. But yeah, I love Iron Man 3. Haters gonna hate, whatever. Okay, Iron Man, it started everything. So I have to put it higher than I would Iron Man 2, but it's not like, I don't really remember that much about it. Obviously I remember his origin story, and I think I know how it ends, but I'm not sure. Maybe that's the second or the third one that I'm thinking of now. But I do really, really like the origin story of Tony Stark. I think his transition from billionaire playboy asshole to billionaire playboy potential Avenger is really nice, and I don't know, it's got to go up there more so than others do, but that's where I'm gonna put it. Thor Ragnarok. I mean, do we want to play games here, or do we want to just be honest? Like, this movie is a superior MCU movie. I've seen a lot of people being like, I don't trust people that don't like Thor Ragnarok, and there's not really any Thor haters. There's only really Thor simps, and then there's like some other meme. I'm too into the internet. I spend too much time on the internet now. But anyways, I saw someone be like, how can you have a comfort movie that's like not Thor Ragnarok? And I was like, honestly though, if I'm gonna like turn on an MCU movie and just like not even care where it started, it's gonna be Thor Ragnarok. Even maybe over some of my favorites, because I want to watch the favorite all the way through. Whereas Thor Ragnarok, like, if it's just on, it's on. It's great. I love the introduction of Valkyrie. Obviously, Loki returning is great. I do like the part where they're visiting Doctor Strange. I thought that was a great inclusion. And obviously the end battle scene and the introduction of the immigrant song. And God bless Taika Waititi. That's where I'm going to end that one. Thor. Normal Thor. Cut the check. I mean, these, like, Thor and Iron Man 2 for me, like, I don't like them as much as Captain America and Iron Man 1. They're just kind of below. Obviously, I do love Loki. I do love him. But, Thor, I just don't, honestly, like, I don't even remember that much about it. Again, these are ones, like, I've maybe only seen the one time. I do like the trip to Arizona. I do love seeing Coulson kind of connect everything. And the cameo of Hawkeye is also great. And, of course, the classic, another. But there's so many MCU projects that, like, something's gotta fall lower. And this is it. Okay. Moving on. Captain America Winter Soldier. Y'all already know. I love this movie. It's been in recent memory because of Black Widow and the comparisons there, which we're going to do in a minute. But I haven't rewatched this one in a while, but this was, for the longest time, like, my favorite MCU movie outside of Iron Man 3. Those two are two of my absolute favorite MCU movies. I think they fall between the two team-up films, the first team-up and the last team-up. But I genuinely love them both so deeply. I just love them. I think with Winter Soldier, obviously the introduction to Sam, I say on your left at any potential moment. I will take the left side of someone and say on your left, to quote this movie. I love it being set in Washington, D.C. I just think it's so fun. And I also just remember going to see this movie and having the hype in like 8th grade to go see this, and I just think it's great. Obviously, we get the great elevator scene, and I think really a lot of the struggle between him and Bucky is great, as well as Steve trying to adjust for the first time, not in a battle, to the modern day world, and Sam being his ticket into that while also being hit quite literally with a ghost from his past of Bucky's return. I think this might be one of the best Russo brother MCU movies. Could be a hot take, but this one just feels so grounded, which obviously is what people love about it. But compared to the spectacle of Civil War, Endgame, and Infinity War, Captain America Winter Soldier doesn't compare to the spectacle of it, but boy, is it still just solid filmmaking. Last movie, double checking, let's scan through the row here. Last movie before we get into the TV shows. This is where I'm gonna get in trouble. I really like this movie. I think it is one of the best outside of the other solo movies I have up here. I think it's one of the best. Again, I've been deprived of Marvel movies for 2 years. For 2 years since No Way Home came out, okay? So I get that. But I think what I like about this movie is stuff I'm still going to enjoy on rewatch, if not more, after I'm rewatching them. I love the character of Natasha, and the characters they surround her with, I think, are so interesting because they have varying degrees of, or they all have equal degrees of depth, but they're not really in any ways similar. Yet I like that they all have this really deep connection to Natasha, and it all feels supernatural. It doesn't feel like here's a new character that we are retconning and, you know, shoving down your throat and forcing you to like. To me, it's, I really loved it. I really genuinely did love it. And I feel like this movie is just one I'm going to really enjoy even more on rewatch. We found out about Budapest. We get links to Hawkeye. Again, on rewatch, in a chronological rewatch, my opinion might change. However, this is where it goes for now. And I think this is pretty relevant to the type of rating I gave it and where it is even on my IMDb, or on my Letterboxd list. So calm your horses. If you're hitting the dislike button, please don't. Okay? Please don't. Now for the TV shows, and we'll do them in the last order just very quickly. WandaVision. I said what I said. I love WandaVision. I love the classic sitcom inspiration for each of these episodes. I love the fact that they filmed it with practical effects that would have been used at that time. I love the fact that it's been nominated for so many Emmys, and I had a really heated discussion with Jack about it. A friendly but, you know, debate about this film, or this series, and why it got more nominations than Falcon and Winter Soldier. Honestly, it's more memorable than Falcon and Winter Soldier, okay? I'm sorry. The fun that they were able to have in this series, that's a contained, limited series, to allow it to still be tied into something else, but still really experiment with the form and genre and storytelling of the MCU, while also bringing back characters like Randall Park's Jimmy Woo and Kat Dennings' Darcy. I loved getting to see them again. I really enjoyed the week-to-week watch of this, and yes, this might be impacted by the fact I did reviews of the other two shows, but this one is gonna go here. Okay, Falcon and Winter Soldier. The more and more I think about this show, I don't like it that much. I don't. It's not that I didn't enjoy it while I was watching it, but compared to the other two MCU shows, which I liked a significant amount more, I feel like I have to put it here. I feel like I'm being unfair, and maybe it should go in Glorious Purpose. Yeah, no, okay. We'll put it up one. Okay, I'm being indecisive now because I'm scared to get hate, and I'm also scared to, you know, overload the bottom of my thing. But genuinely, I really enjoyed this series, and I really, really want to do, like, again, a chronological rewatch of all of these shows. This is the most up-to-date we've been in the MCU. I mean, we're not really sure where Loki falls with that kind of thing, but I do like the ground level of the MCU. I like it a lot. The only thing is, I feel like this series puts a real seriousness, which again, you can't really have grounded without seriousness, but I feel like it dampers some of Sam Wilson's character. And again, I do remember in the first couple episodes him being like a driving force of a lot of the humor, so maybe that's unfair of me to say in retrospect, not remembering properly, but I feel like it takes away some of what I loved about Sam as Falcon. And even though he is now Captain America, I do feel like there's just a little bit of a loss of character for him. Again, that could be the writing, or that could be, you know, Anthony Mackie taking the character to a new phase where maybe we'll get to see him more in different future things. But I do really like the introduction of Val and US Agent in this series. I think that's two of the better, like, story writing things. And I'm just not personally a huge Bucky fan. It's not that I don't like him, but I just am not really, like, I just don't care about him as much as I do Sam. So for me, this is where this one falls. I think it's a little high, but I'm with this being cold, I'm fine with it going there. I want to be a little bit more generous. And last but not least, we have Loki, which I'm just going to very intentionally put in front of WandaVision. Not all of these are in a particular, well, no, okay. We'll put it there. The reason I'm moving it up is because I want this to have some indication of how much I like these shows in comparison to one another. I really like WandaVision and Loki, but Loki takes the cake for me. I think the storytelling is significantly better. I think that the acting, I love. That first episode is something that I have not forgotten since the day I watched it. It is still to this day, the only thing of the Marvel universe that I have, like, gone back the next day and watched. like the very next day, and rewatched. Just because, I mean, I'm also not going to pay tickets to go see them in theaters. But like WandaVision, I didn't do that with the sitcom episodes. As much as I love them, as much as I hate that they get so much hate, Loki is just all around world's kind of the best TV show thus far. And I'm excited because of it to see what else the MCU has to offer in the future with TV shows and, you know, future projects and just the storytelling that they want to do. This is my MCU ranking. This is cold. This is not really having rewatched things, not really rewatching any of these at least in 6 months. Or no, not really rewatching any of these in at least a couple months. So what do you think? Are you mad at me? Did you unsubscribe? Do you like where things fall? Or are you just interested more so to see where I go forward with these? I guess I'll say now, I think I'm thinking of doing a series when I do my chronological rewatch, because obviously I'm not going to rewatch these all in one weekend. I don't have that big of a social life, but I have a little bit of one, okay? And I would like to retain it. So I think in the weeks leading up to the rest of the Marvel content, my plan is to do a chronological rewatch of all of these movies. But I think as I do my chronological rewatch, you guys will get actual reviews of each of these from me, potentially in written form as well on assembledpress.com, because, I mean, MCU did kind of inspire the website a little bit, can't lie. I can't wait to talk more and more about the MCU, and I can't wait to see where the new additions fall in this for me, or how stuff rearranges as I rewatch things. If you're still watching this point, you're a real one, but can you comment down below what your favorite MCU movie is? Like, not technically the best, I mean, unless that's the reason it's your favorite, but like your favorite. Like, if you could only keep one of these, only keep one, and TV shows can count in that, what would you keep? I'm curious to know. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for watching. Have an absolutely amazing day or night wherever you are, and I will see y'all in the next video. Bye, y'all.